Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening up a really remarkable piece of writing. It's concise, almost deceptively so, but the ideas inside are just cosmic in their scope. We're looking at a text known as The First Word, which is part of this much larger collection, the Risale-i Nur, by an author named Said Nursi.
And it's an intense starting point.
It really is. I mean, this is not a gentle read. The author is incredibly direct. He frames the whole thing as a series of 8 short stories or pieces of advice?
Right, advice aimed first at himself, at his own soul.
Which he calls the hardest audience of all.
Yeah.
And he delivers it with this clarity and precision you'd expect from, say, a military briefing for a soldier. The language is sharp, it's strategic, very practical.
Absolutely, there's no fluff.
None at all. Okay, so let's unpack this for you. Our main focus, the single concept that really governs this entire text, is the deep foundational meaning of the phrase Bismillah.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate.
Exactly. And the source material, it doesn't just treat this as, a nice thing to say or a simple prayer. It makes this monumental claim that this phrase is literally the start of all things good.
Which is a huge statement.
It's a massive statement. So our mission for this deep dive is to get past the ritual aspect and really understand almost the engineering function of Bismillah. We need to figure out why the text describes it as an inexhaustible strength and an unending source of bounty. I mean, how does a single phrase bridge that gap between our own human frailty and, infinite power?
That framing is exactly right. And for you, the learner, understanding the context here is just vital. Said Nursi immediately expands the scope of Bismillah way beyond just human devotion. He's arguing this isn't some religious custom for just one faith. Not at all.
So something bigger.
Much bigger. He presents it as a universal operational code. He explains that this phrase is something constantly recited by all beings through their tongues of disposition.
Okay, tons of disposition. That's a phrase we have to stop on. It's crucial.
It is.
Because if the whole universe is reciting this, how do you hear a tree or a stone say, "In the name of God"? What does that actually mean in practice?
It means function. It means obedience to a higher law. A tongue of disposition isn't about vocal speech. It's the inherent, involuntary function of a thing that is perfectly carrying out the divine law that governs it.
I see. So it's about action, not words.
It's action as speech. It's the active demonstration of dependence. So, for instance, a river flows to the sea. Its tongue of disposition is speaking the law of gravity, of fluid dynamics. It's confirming it's under command.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or a tiny seed sprouts into a huge tree. Its tongue of disposition is reciting the command for growth and provision. It's acting purely through a delegated authority, not its own will.
So this is the universal principle we're going to be tracking.
Exactly, and we'll see it through the author's really vivid, very practical analogies. We'll start with vulnerable desert travelers and then move to disciplined soldiers. It's all designed to make this very abstract idea of power instantly relatable to your own individual journey.
All right, let's dive into that first analogy. It's designed to hit home right away by establishing what the text sees as the fundamental human condition: profound vulnerability. So the text places us in this extreme hostile environment. We're on a long, very risky journey through the deserts of Arabia.
Which is a perfect symbol for the world, right? It can be beautiful, but it's also full of threats, and it requires resources that you personally just do not have.
Exactly. And the story contrasts the journeys of 2 different travelers. And their experiences are completely different based on one single, very simple choice. And this is where the psychological weight of the analogy really starts to sink in.
It really does. The first traveler, he's described as humble. He's aware of his own limitations. He makes the wise decision to travel under the protection and, crucially, the name of a recognized, powerful tribal chief.
And the benefits are immediate.
Oh, completely immediate and tangible. The source really emphasizes this. So if he runs into bandits, which are the ultimate symbol of chaos and danger in that setting, he doesn't try to fight. He doesn't plead based on his own strength.
What does he do?
He simply states, "I am traveling in the name of the chief." And that's it.
And the bandits just leave him alone.
They immediately back off. They recognize the chief's superior, overwhelming power. They know the consequences of violating his authority, so they just don't touch him.
Wow.
And everywhere he goes, whether it's at a settlement or a tent, he's treated with respect, he's provided for, but it's entirely because of the name he invoked. His personal weakness becomes completely irrelevant because the authority he's connected to is infinite.
Okay, so that's the successful journey. Now, let's contrast that with the overwhelming failure of the second traveler.
The proud one.
The proud, conceited man who refuses to use any name but his own. He thinks his own planning, his own, minimal supplies, his own strength. That'll be enough.
A fatal miscalculation.
A fatal one. The text says the consequences were immediate and dramatic. He suffered, and I'm quoting here, indescribable calamities.
And that's not just physical hardship, is it?
No, it's total existential despair. He spends his entire journey just trembling before every potential threat. Could be a small noise, a distant shadow, anything. And because he has no resources, he's reduced to begging.
Begging from everything.
From absolutely everything he encountered. He's desperately seeking help from rocks, from streams, from other people.
And this pride, this reliance on himself, it inevitably leads to him being, as the text says, abased and became an object of scorn.
Right.
The sheer scale of the desert, the infinite needs and the infinite threats, it just completely overwhelmed his tiny, minuscule personal strength.
So, if we're translating this for you, the learner, the metaphors here are incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
We really need to analyze what the author intended.
Okay, so the traveler. The text is explicit. It says, "My proud soul, you are the traveler." So it's that part of us, the part that believes in its own self-sufficiency.
And the desert.
The desert is this world. The entirety of your life's experience, which is framed as both beautiful, yes, but also hostile and demanding.
Okay, so what is our soul's condition in this desert?
Well, the text gives us this terrifying dual reality. First, your personal impotence and poverty have no limit. They are infinite, unending states of being.
Okay, that's bleak.
It is, but at the same time, your enemies and needs are endless. So it's a perfect spiritual trap. You are infinitely weak and infinitely needy, and you're facing an infinitely large and demanding universe.
That sounds like the ultimate recipe for existential dread. I mean, if your resources are finite but your needs are infinite, the moment you realize that, you should logically just collapse, trembling and begging.
Exactly. And the source establishes the terrifying scope of the problem to make the solution shine that much brighter. The immediate, elegant, and definitive solution it offers is to stop operating as a private individual.
It changes your status.
Instantly. The traveler must take the name of the pre-eternal ruler and post-eternal lord of the desert. That's the authorization code. That is what instantly changes the entire scale of the game.
But let's get into the mechanics of Bismillah here. It's not just a password you whisper, right? It's a transformation.
Mm-hmm.
How does saying the name actually combat that infinite impotence?
Because it immediately saves the individual from those two conditions we just described. Begging before the whole universe and trembling before every event.
How so?
Well, when you acknowledge your own weakness and your own poverty, you're essentially saying, I cannot do this, but the one whose name I am invoking can. That single acknowledgement of your own limitation, it instantly binds your lack of resources to an unlimited supply.
So you move from being, what, an isolated, bankrupt person?
To an authorized agent of the king.
Exactly. It fundamentally changes your posture then. You stop approaching the universe as a desperate beggar pleading for scraps.
Mm-hmm.
And you start approaching it as an authorized representative who is making a legitimate claim on the king's treasury.
And that is the profound insight the text offers. Bismillah is called a treasury so blessed because it performs a kind of theological alchemy. It takes your inherent infinite impotence and poverty, the very things that were sources of your dread, and it binds them to an infinite power and mercy.
So the very act of me recognizing my own weakness is what gives me strength. My neediness becomes the currency I use.
Precisely. Your weakness is transformed into a functional tool. It becomes, and this is another quote, a most acceptable intercessor at the court of one all-powerful and compassionate.
An intercessor here doesn't mean just passively praying, does it?
No, think of it as a legal claim. Since you acknowledge the gift's true owner, your need is instantly legitimized. It reverses the entire equation of human vulnerability. It turns what was despair into a dignified reliance. Okay, so now we shift gears a little. We move from the traveler, who is mainly focused on getting protection and resources in a hostile world, to the soldier.
And this moves us from a passive state to an active one.
Exactly. From passive reliance to active operational power. This is about the execution of delegated authority.
Okay.
The text compares using the name, acting in the name of God, directly to the transformation a person undergoes when they, when they abandon civilian life and they enroll in a powerful, centralized army.
That's a perfect analogy for organizational power.
Mm.
I mean, when you enroll, you shed the physical constraints of being just one weak, isolated person. Your strength is no longer measured by your own muscles or the little bit of money in your pocket.
Right, because the soldier acts in the name of the government. And what does that unlock? The source material says the soldier has fear of no one.
Fear of no one.
They're empowered to speak with authority, to perform every necessary matter for their duty, and most importantly, they can withstand everything in the name of the law and the name of the government. They are backed by the limitless resources of the entire state.
The contrast between this soldier and that proud traveler from before it's just stark.
It's night and day. The traveler suffered because he insisted on using his own name, which carried zero weight. The soldier thrives because he insists on using the government's name, which carries overwhelming weight.
And to make this concept just impossible to ignore, the author gives us this striking, almost exaggerated example. It's designed to highlight the sheer mismatch between personal ability and delegated authority.
Right, the example of the town.
Yeah. Imagine you walk into a town and you see one single solitary person, and this one individual, operating completely alone, has managed to drive all the inhabitants of a town to a place by force and compelled them to work.
Which is physically ridiculous.
It's impossible if that person is acting on their own.
And that's the key inference the text forces us to make. If you saw that mismatch, one person compelling hundreds, you wouldn't believe for a second that they had done it in their own name and through their own power.
No, you'd be absolutely sure this is a soldier.
Acting in the name of the government and relying on the power of the king.
The force isn't in the man's muscles or his weapon.
No. The force is the authority of the law that he represents. And the use of the name is simply the key that unlocks that authority.
So what this analogy is really communicating to you, the listener, is that using Bismillah isn't just a defensive move, like the traveler using a name for protection.
No.
It's an offensive tool for action. It's what makes otherwise impossible. Actions like, as we'll see, the silent growth of a seed, or the piercing of a root, or even compelling a massive task, entirely feasible.
Exactly. It perfectly captures that distinction between intrinsic power, which for any one of us is tiny, and delegated power, which is infinite, because it mirrors the scope of the authority you're invoking.
So when you take on a project or you face a challenge,
When you act in the name of God, you're mobilizing the command structure of the entire universe, not just drawing from your own little reserve tank of willpower. It transforms your personal effort into an authorized execution of a command.
Okay, so we've established the personal power and authority you can access with Bismillah. But now the text just zooms out dramatically from the individual soul to the entire physical cosmos. We have to go back to that initial statement. All beings say, in the name of God, through the tongue of disposition.
This is a huge shift. It's telling us that the universe isn't some chaotic, random place. It's an organized structure and it operates entirely on this principle of command.
And this is where it gets, for me, really interesting. We're going to look at how these incredibly tiny, powerless objects in the natural world achieve massive, life-sustaining, and often physics-defying feats.
And they achieve them not through their own physical properties, but through command.
Exactly. Let's start with the smallest example, the most physically unimpressive, seeds and grains.
Okay. The text points out the sheer absurdity of their function if you only look at their physical makeup.
Right. These are tiny things, yet they bear huge trees on their heads, and they raise loads like mountains.
The scale disparity is colossal. A seed might weigh a fraction of an ounce, but it's responsible for mobilizing the energy, commanding the water, and structuring the mass needed to create a 50-ton oak tree.
It's a silent, constant miracle happening all around us. If we tried to replicate that feat-lifting 50 tons with an object the size of a fingernail, it's just impossible.
So the Bismillah of the seed is that initial command that allows the whole energy chain to start. It overcomes gravity and inertia not through physical force, but through an authorized law.
And that silent process of growth, of transformation.
That is its tongue of disposition, reciting Bismillah. It's the physical proof of its total reliance on the Almighty for the power to perform its task.
And then the trees themselves, they continue this recitation. They're described as actively saying, in the name of God. And by doing that, they fill their hands from the treasury of mercy and offer them to us.
As fruit, as bounty. The tree in this view is just the delivery mechanism.
The conduit.
Exactly. The source of the fruit, the complex chemistry, the precise nutrients, the sweetness, the color, all of that comes from the treasury of mercy. The tree itself is just the channel, acting on command, using the name to access resources far beyond anything it could make on its own.
So this moves the analogy from simple growth to complex manufacturing, and the author expands this to gardens. When they say, "in the name of God," they become cauldrons from the kitchens of divine power.
It's such a visual metaphor.
It is. Think about the logistics. A single plot of land simultaneously cooking hundreds of varieties of totally different foods. You've got tomatoes, carrots, herbs, berries, each one needing a distinct chemical recipe, different nutrients, unique timelines.
This isn't random natural selection in this view. This is complex, high-volume, precision manufacturing that's operating under a single unified command. The garden isn't a passive ecosystem. It's an active, diversified kitchen.
And we see this in the animal kingdom, too.
Yes, in the animal bounties. The blessed animals, cows, camels, sheep, and goats, they all participate in this universal recitation. They say, "in the name of God," and produce springs of milk from the abundance of mercy.
And the source material is really quick to highlight the delicacy and the purity of that milk. It calls it a most delicate and pure food, like the water of life.
And think about the miracle of where it comes from. This pure, white, sweet, life-sustaining liquid is produced from the coarse grass the animal eats.
And it's generated between blood and waste matter.
Exactly. The command has to intervene to refine that raw material into the finished product. It demonstrates absolute control over the chemical process. The animal is just the factory, producing milk in the name of the provider.
And maybe the most compelling piece of physical evidence, the one that directly challenges our everyday understanding of physics, is in the root structure of these plants.
Yes. The roots and the rootlets, the things responsible for getting nutrients and minerals, they're described as being soft as silk.
They're delicate, easily bruised.
And yet, these silken threads manage to pierce and pass through hard rock and earth.
This is the ultimate operational paradox, isn't it? If you take a piece of silk and you try to push it against a piece of steel, the silk is destroyed every time.
Right.
But this soft root achieves what steel drills often struggle to do, penetrating solid rock. How does soft material defeat hard material? Every day, all over the world.
The text gives the precise mechanism. It says, mentioning the name of God, the name of the most merciful, everything becomes subjected to them.
The power isn't in the root itself.
Not at all. The power is external. It's authorized by the name. The command structure makes the hard rock functionally soft for the duration of the root's authorized mission. The delicate root uses the correct authorization code, and the rock, which is also under command, simply stands aside.
It's an incredible contrast, the perfect example of authority just superseding physical force.
And we have to remember, the author isn't just using these observations for a sense of spiritual wonder. He's using them as direct evidence in a philosophical debate.
Right.
The text now transitions into a direct confrontation with what it calls naturalists. These are people who believe that all these phenomenal processes are governed purely by the inherent uncommanded properties of matter.
This feels like the philosophical climax of the argument, and we should probably clarify who the text means by naturalists here.
Right.
It's not necessarily, say, modern scientists.
No, it's more a philosophical stance. It's anyone who attributes causality to the immediate material source, the cell, the water, the gravity, and just assumes that's the end of the story. They neglect the commander of those forces.
They worship the appearance, the immediate cause, rather than the ultimate source, the command.
Precisely. And so the text weaponizes the mundane, daily reality of the physical world against this skepticism. It uses the naturalist's own evidence, things like heat and hardness, to prove the existence of command.
Okay, so what evidence does it present?
Two main pieces of natural evidence are highlighted to refute this idea of an uncommanded nature. The first one, as we just explored, is the root structure. The roots spreading through hard rock and earth as easily as the branches spread through the air. The sheer ease and universality of this rock-piercing function just defies the supposed inherent property of rock being hard and resistant.
And the second example is just as compelling.
The delicate green leaves retaining their moisture for months in the face of extreme heat. A leaf is thin, it's fragile, it's volatile. It should, by all rights, dry up and crumble instantly under extreme heat, yet it maintains its life.
And the source uses some really forceful language here. It says, these phenomena deal a slap in the mouths of naturalists and jab a finger in their blind eyes.
It's very direct.
The assertion is clear. Even heat and hardness in which you most trust are under a command. The very forces you attribute to random, autonomous matter are, in this view, subordinates following orders.
And to make the argument truly unforgettable, the author connects these daily physical phenomena to the grand, seemingly unique miracles described in sacred texts.
This linkage is crucial.
It is, because it's showing you, the listener, that the mechanism for a so-called miracle is the very same mechanism that's governing daily physics.
Let's spend a minute on this parallel. The silken rootlets are explicitly likened to the staff of Moses.
Right. Think about the miracle of Moses striking the rock with his staff and causing water to burst forth. That seemingly supernatural event-splitting hard rock with a softer material is presented by the author not as a violation of physical law,
but as a magnified instance of a universal rule.
Exactly. The rootlet, being soft as silk, penetrating hard rock, is merely conforming to the same universal command that was given to Moses. Strike the rock with your staff and splits the rock.
So the rock's hardness is always subservient to the command.
Always. The root is demonstrating that command quietly every day. Moses demonstrated the command publicly, but they share the same underlying physics of submission.
And likewise, the second parallel connects the delicate leaves fine as cigarette paper, surviving months of extreme heat, to the trials of the prophet Abraham.
Yes. Abraham, according to tradition, was protected from the fire by divine intervention. The text suggests that the delicate leaf surviving the intense heat of the sun is essentially reciting the same verse that was given in the fire. O fire, be coolness and peace.
This is a profound unification of theology and what we call natural science. It's saying the power that governs natural forces, the ability to neutralize the destructive power of heat, the ability to subjugate the resistance of hardness, is a single coherent command structure.
And Bismillah is the operational key. It's the key that enables both the daily miracle of the leaf and the historical miracle of Abraham. It is, quite simply, the language of command.
It takes the whole discussion into a new realm. This command structure makes the impossible feasible, whether you're a soldier compelling a town, a soft root-splitting rock, or a prophet surviving the flames. It all comes down to using the name of the true authority.
So we've established that every single bounty, every apple, every drop of milk, every breath we take is delivered to us by countless beings, all acting through Bismillah. So, since the true owner is constantly providing in his name, the crucial question for us, the human recipients, is... What's the appropriate response? What does the true bestower want in return for all this?
We understand paying the intermediary. We pay the waiter, the delivery driver. The text calls them tray bearers. But the central question for you, the learner, is what price does God want? He's the true owner, the true bestower of these invaluable gifts.
And the answer is remarkably free of any financial or material cost. The text specifies 3 non-monetary requirements. These are the price of gratitude and acknowledgement for these bounties.
In these 3 steps, they establish the proper relationship between the gift and the receiver.
Exactly.
The first one is remembrance. This is like the opening ceremony. It's performed by saying, in the name of God, Bismillah, right at the start of any action, before you consume any bounty or before you undertake any endeavor.
It's the moment you recognize the origin and the true owner of the gift. It ensures you don't mistakenly attribute the gift to the apparent, immediate source.
Okay, so remembrance is first. The second is thanks. This closes the loop.
Right. This is achieved by saying, all praise be to God, alhamdulillah, at the end of the action or the meal or the experience. This acknowledges that the benefit was fully received and appreciated, and it attributes the goodness of the result back to the divine.
And then the third requirement, reflection. And this one is often the most demanding, but also maybe the most important for our audience.
This means actively engaging your mind. You must perceive and think of these bounties not as common mass-produced items, but as priceless wonders of art and miracles of power of the one who is unique and eternally powerful.
Let's make that concept of reflection more tangible. Say you have a simple glass of water or an apple. Reflection means tracing that bounty back through the command structure we've been talking about. It means thinking about how that soft root defied physics to draw up the water, how the tree defied gravity to lift the mass, how the sun's heat was commanded to be coolness and peace for the leaves, and how the chemical structure was arranged perfectly for your nourishment.
It turns a mundane act like eating into an act of profound contemplation about a commanded universe. It's an exercise in seeing the hidden engineering behind the product you're holding.
And this act of reflection is the antidote to the greatest folly the text warns us against. The source is absolutely explicit about this.
It is. It says it is 1,000 times more foolish to stop the chain of attribution at the surface, to praise and love the apparent source of bounties, the tray bearer, the immediate giver, the cow, the farmer, the tree, and to completely forget the true bestower, the gift's owner.
If you reflect on the miracle of milk being formed between blood and waste, you can't possibly attribute that purity to the physical biology of the cow alone.
You have to see the controlling, commanding hand. The bounty must serve as a mirror that reflects the true source, never a wall that terminates your reflection at the delivery person.
So this whole philosophical discussion about universal commands and grateful reflection, it has to be distilled into practical rules for daily life, for a soldier, for a learner.
And the author provides that. The matter in a nutshell, with 3 concise rules for action.
Okay, rule number 1, give in God's name. This means when you're the one providing for others, giving a gift, a service, a salary, the motivation and the source of that resource have to be understood as originating beyond your own personal wealth or capacity. You are just a tray bearer yourself.
Rule number 2, take in God's name. This is the acknowledgement part. You should never assume ownership or independent power over the things you receive. By taking in the name, you honor the true owner and you avoid the folly of that proud traveler in the desert.
And the third rule kind of combines the first two. It's the universal application. Begin in God's name and act in God's name. This demands consistent application of Bismillah to everything you do, big or small, to ensure all your actions are properly authorized.
And finally, there's a crucial, specific constraint tied to this transactional framework. It says, we should not take from heedless people who neglect to give in God's name.
That's a strong statement. What does it mean?
It serves as a kind of moral and spiritual boundary. It suggests that if the provider is operating outside of this command framework, if they're assuming false autonomy over the resource, the receiver should be cautious. You should maintain your own awareness and, in a way, demand that all transactions operate within this framework of acknowledgement. #outro passer.
What an incredible journey we've just taken through the first word. We started with this very foundational advice for a single, struggling soul, someone feeling plagued by infinite weakness and infinite need in the desert of life. And we followed that argument through military analogies and these deep dives into natural physics.
And we've ended up with this profound universal framework, one that dictates not just how human beings should behave, but how matter itself operates, how power is delegated, and how the daily miracles of creation are sustained.
It's just a complete shift in perspective.
It is. The ultimate insight, repeated in every single analogy, is the transformation of the individual's inherent infinite poverty. This poverty, which should logically lead to despair, is instead transformed into access to infinite power and infinite mercy.
Simply by consistently engaging the operational code of the universe.
Bismillah.
A final quick summary connecting these core themes for you. The desert journey taught us that simply invoking the name guarantees protection. It ends the despair of trembling and begging.
Right.
The soldier analogy taught us the stunning effectiveness of delegated authority, making the physically impossible completely feasible. And the seeds and the roots, they taught us the universal mechanism, confirming that nature itself operates solely on this command structure, proving the name's authority over gravity, heat, and hardness.
Very complete picture.
So what does this all mean for you today? This deep dive shows that the very act of existing, of eating, drinking, interacting with nature, is all predicated on this single, hidden, powerful system of command and name-giving, into the underlying functional code of existence itself.
And that leads to a final provocative thought for you to mull over as you finish this deep dive. If everything in the physical world, from a soft, rootlet, splitting hard rock to a delicate seed bearing a mighty tree, achieves its immense function only by acting in the name of command, what are the inherent limits to the power, the capacity, and the effectiveness you could unlock and access by consistently and thoughtfully applying this principle of delegated authority to your own daily decisions and actions?
Something to think about.
The power is never in the agent. It is always in the name that is invoked.